Hey guys, welcome back to today's episode. Today we're going to take this Injora crawler that we got off of Amazon for $53 and built up into this amazing rig. Today we're going to go from this to this. That's right guys, four-wheel steering. It's not hard to do, parts aren't that expensive. I show you step by step how to do it. We do a test run at the end. Let's get the video started. So what we got is a axle mount servo bracket. I got a set of front and rear axles, but we're only going to need the front ones. I got a 25 kilogram Feetech servo. This is the digital 180 degree servo. This was from Injora, I believe. Yeah, the Injora AR44 servo mount axle bracket. And I got these brass C-hubs and spindles. So what we're going to do is take these aluminum ones off that we have on the front of the the Injora LCG right now. We're going to take these aluminum ones off, put the heavier brass ones on. I don't remember, I think these are 90 grams per side, so it adds a total of 180 grams. I will put that on the screen and verify it. But we're going to switch out the C-hubs and the spindles, because we're going to take the stuff that we have on the front here, which is aluminum and lighter weight, put the heavier stuff on the front. We're going to move this lightweight stuff to the rear and make this guy four-wheel steering. Alright guys, so I got one side done. Basically all you do is take the one screw out of the bottom of your C-hub, and then there's two screws on your spindle. And you don't have to reuse those with the new ones because the new ones come with the little brass pieces and the screws right there. And it also, these axles come with new pins for the rear. As far as the C-hubs, I guess there's a little bit of weight difference. This is brass, this is aluminum. This one's definitely heavier, but it's not a drastic amount. I can notice a difference. But the main difference is, I mean, look how much beefier this brass spindle is compared to this aluminum one. So, definitely getting most of your weight there. But there is also an added weight with the C-hub. I didn't put it in the beginning of the parts, but you will have to reuse the bearings that are in your existing C-hubs. The rear big bearing, and then the smaller front bearing. As far as the C-hub itself goes, that's just the one screw that comes out. It slides on the splines. When you put it on the splines, make sure you see this angle. That needs to be tilted in at the top. So when you put this on, make sure that this is tilted in at the top. Now, I'm not running a panhard bar, but if you are, this is your panhard bar mount. You can run it on left or right or whichever way you want to. The C-hubs don't matter. And really the spindles don't matter either. You can mount them either way you want to, like this with the drag link at the bottom. I flipped them over to run the drag link at the top so that it's higher. So I flipped mine over to where the drag link would be at the upmost part, because if I use this one, you can see the drag link would be lower. So it really doesn't matter which one you use where, but I want to keep this stuff as high and out of the way as possible. So I've got my drag link above my line with my diff housing. I've got this flipped upside down so it's at the highest point. And when you mount your C-hubs, make sure that the angle is tilted inward at the top, which gives you your camber angle. So I'm going to get this other side done, and then we'll move on and take all these pieces and move on to the back. Alright, I figured I would go ahead and show how this side goes back together, just in case somebody's out there that doesn't know. So like I said, on your C-hub, You want to make sure that that angle is to the top so that your caster is, or your camber is in, and that just gets one screw with a nut on the backside, and it goes on these splines. You can index it whichever way you want to. I try to keep mine fairly straight. Some people turn them back, but when you have it turned back, it's going to make your wheels fall over. So you want to kind of keep it straight, so they just turn. The further back or the further forward you go, your wheels are just going to want to fall over when you turn. So try to keep that straight up and down, centered. That looks good. And we're just going to run this through, and then the nut goes on the back side. So as soon as the screw starts coming out the back, we'll start putting the nut on, and then we'll get our T-wrench on there, tighten the screw up, and then we'll give the T-wrench a couple turns to tighten the nut. It is a nylon lock nut on these, so you don't have to put any Loctite on this part. But when you go to put your brass pieces in and these two screws into your C-hub or into your spindle, you will have to put a little Loctite just because these are metal. So you want a little drop of Loctite on each one of those. I don't have any right now. I got to get some more. So I will be taking it back apart to put that Loctite on. So as far as your bearings, you've got a bigger bearing that goes on the inside that you're going to have to reuse from your, doesn't matter if they're plastic, aluminum, brass, they're all going to be the same size. If you don't have these, you can get them online. I think you can get enough to do the whole truck in SCX 10.2 for around 10 bucks. Or if you're just doing something like this, you can just reuse your old ones. So they usually, if you just give them a smack like that, the bearing will fall out the back. The big one goes in the back, obviously you can't do it wrong. The smaller one goes in the front. These are actually aftermarket bearings that I bought. You can see they have the blue dust shields on them. It keeps water and dirt out of them. I'll put the link to those in the bottom in the description. Before that goes on, we're going to put our shaft back in. So as you put it in there, you just got to kind of turn it and find it to lock it into the central gear. There we go. So that's in. And we'll put our brass pieces in. Sometimes they won't stay in, but at least get your top one in. Feed that through there. And get your one screw started through the top. Alright, and then make sure your brass piece doesn't fall out and get your bottom one started. Alright, once you get those started, you see this bearing doesn't want to stay in place, so usually what I do is I'll get it back up in there where it needs to go. And then I'll go ahead and put the pin back through it like that, and then I'll take my wheel hex and put that back on just to hold everything in place. There you go, you don't have to worry about that falling out now. So just snug that up, a little dirt on it so they're a little tight. And then our drag link's going to go back in the middle. I like coming up from the bottom just so that this isn't sticking down, getting caught on things, so I always like to come up through the bottom. It looks like these are threaded, so I guess on this particular one I'm going to go down through the top. Like so. Run that down, and this is all just a mock-up, guys. I may change some things. Again, this is going into a threaded piece of brass, so it's going to need a drop of Loctite. We'll just give it a little little snug. You don't want any binding or anything like that. So that's it on the front, guys. Nice and easy. Took the old C-hubs and knuckles off, which these were aftermarket ones that we bought because these were complete custom axles, overdrive gears in the front. We have these lightweight aluminum C-hubs and spindles that we bought. We have the standard gearing in the back. We have the 6-hole diff lock in the center of each. I think those were SSD diff lockers. We have the overdrive gear on the front and standard gearing in the rear. So now that we got the front all back together, I'm going to take this Injora servo bracket and put it together and get it on the rear end just like the front. So basically this is going to be exactly the same as the rear now, and then we'll just have to plug the servo in, see which direction it's turning, and program it into our radio. Alright guys, so we got our rear steering hooked up. I just measured from the rear axle to the front axle, and I measured on both sides and made that distance even. I think it was 12 3/4 or something like that. And I got a bar in there that's about the right length. I can screw these in or out to make it longer or shorter to adjust the toe on the rear. I believe your rear should be towed in just a little bit, just like the front. If not exactly straight, if you know, because if you figure if it wasn't rear steer, there would be exactly straight. So you want it straight or just a little bit in. I'm going to try to go with straight and see how that does. If I get any dragging, I shouldn't. The front is all set up because it was exactly the same length, so I just switched everything over. So I have the Injora mount in place now. Basically, the two screws come in through the front of the top of the pumpkin right there on each side, and you have these stanchions, and then they send you a long screw, longer than this one that came out, that goes all the way through. It goes all the way through the stanchion, through your pumpkin, through the upper links, out the other side, through the other stanchion, and then you put a nut on it. So it goes all the way through to help support that. And then you have your two screws that go into the top of your diff. So looks like a pretty good design. It's a little different than the one we have on the front, but it's still going to work out fine. I'm not too worried about the amount of steering angle I have on the rear, because honestly on a rear steer I don't think you're going to be using quite as much. So we'll probably dial that back when we're setting up the radio to where we only have maybe that much, because we're going to run into trouble with hitting our links or our shocks or our body or something like that. So we're going to have to play with the settings for endpoints. But this is all new, so we'll figure it out. So now that I got this mounted, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up everything. I had to leave these loose and the two countersunk ones loose. I'm going to tighten these up and then mount the servo in there. And then I have a couple different servo arms that I'm going to try just to see if they're the right length. I think that one's going to be close. And I'm going to hook the radio up. The easiest way to do this, guys, is just leave your servo loose like that and plug it in. And turn it on, plug it into your receiver, and try your knob and see which way it goes. Because if it's going the wrong way this way, just flip your servo over like that and put your arm on the other side. Then you don't have to go into your radio and reverse it and all that kind of stuff. So just leave it loose, and just depending on which side you need it to go to, it doesn't really matter, you know. The one up front is going to this side, so I can do them both on the same side. It doesn't matter. That'll just kind of save you a step when you're trying to figure out which direction you need it to go. So I'm going to get this tightened up, get the servo mounted, get this little steering link installed, and then we'll come back out and see how it works. Alright guys, we are all set. We got the... Let me go ahead and get it off of these guys. I'm just going to keep the rear up. But we've got the Fly Sky hooked up. This is the GT5, if you guys remember. I bought this a while back. I think it holds 15 different models. So basically, the FlySky is super easy to do a rear steer in a crawl mode. All you have to do is plug your rear steer servo into your channel 3 slot, and it will automatically make that your rear steer servo. So you can see now as it falls off. We have rear steering. So you can see my front wheels are going. See here. Alright, maybe that's a little better. So now you can see I've got it on 4-wheel steer, so when I turn to the left, the back wheels turn to the right, which is going to make it curve around a lot more. And it's simple to do. Like I said, you just plug your rear servo into channel 3, and then you go into your controller to where it says crawl, and you can do 4-wheel steering. This is 4-wheel steering. This is crab, so you can see the front and the rear are turning the same direction now. This is rear steer only, so you can see the front is not moving. And that's just normal front steering only. So we'll put it on all 4. So I turn to the right, these turn to the left, which means it's going to make a tighter circle. Alright guys, so you see we have to adjust the end travel. Just when we get the tires on, we're not going to want them to come hit the shocks or hit the rear frame. We're probably going to limit it to where it's not going to go too crazy on the rear steer. Just something to help us. And what you do is you just scroll over once you find the right channel. So you scroll over to EPA, and then you go to channel 3, and I have it at 70% right now. So I got it 70% that way, 70% that way. So you can dial this up or down. Say I only want 50%. So I got 50% that way, 70 that way. So dial that way down to 50. And now you only have 50% travel. So once you get your tires on and everything, you go in there and you can adjust this up and down to how far and how much travel you want. So I'm going to get the tires on it. Get these wires up out of the way. Make sure everything's tight. And we'll give it a buzz around the yard, see how it does. Alright guys, so we got the body back on. I got it in front wheel steer. I'm just going to do a couple circles here to show about what the turning radius is. That's full lock. Pretty good. Alright, then we're going to go on the radio. And we're going to go to rear wheel steer only. Not quite as good a turning radius, but I have it limited to travel. I think 60%. Then we're going to change to crab mode. Kind of funny looking. I'm sure there's a use for it. We'll figure that out. And then the reason we did it is all-wheel steering, so that is a tight turning radius, almost the length of the truck. And luckily enough, I didn't have to trim the body because the body's up high enough. And you see I have it limited there so it won't hit the shocks. But the way I have the body trimmed, the wheels aren't hitting, so I didn't have to trim the body any more than it already is. So there we go guys, and then you can always go back to just regular steering. Pretty easy with the FlySky GT5. I do recommend this radio. It's around $70 and it holds 20 models, so you can't beat it.